Yoga is a practice of life. Yoga is living life. Yoga is life. You can take 8 elements of yoga as the guidebook for your life. Always speak the truth. Never lie to somebody. The things that you don't possess, the things that you don't own, you're not supposed to keep it. You should be happy for whatever you have in life instead of being sad for whatever you don't have in life. Hello all, my name is Rohit. I take physical education on behalf of prep school by Vidhyaashram. In today's class, we will cover the first session of yoga, where we will try to understand different concepts of yoga, the meaning of yoga, and also we will see various other benefits and various other importance of yoga. Now, having said that, let's move on with our session overview and try to understand what all things we'll be covering in this particular session of the chapter. So first, we'll start off by understanding the meaning of yoga, where we'll study about its derivation, its nomenclature, from where exactly the name was derived. After that, we'll look into the importance of yoga, why we should practice yoga, what is the importance of yoga in our life and as well as in our history. Then we will see different elements of yoga. After that, we'll study about the concept of yama, niyama. Then we'll look into meaning of asana, where we'll try to understand and derive the meaning of asana. And finally, we'll conclude this whole session by understanding the classification of asanas, where we'll study different elements or different classifications of asana, where asana is divided into different categories and on what basis the categories are divided. Okay, so few of the terms you might not understand now. As we move along in the chapter, I'll explain each one of them and you'll get more clarity about the topic and the meaning behind it. Now, one thing to bear in mind is many names in this chapter will be in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is one of the oldest language in our world also, and also a lot of things related to our culture in our country is also written in Sanskrit. So a lot of the granths and a lot of the literary works that is there in the history of our country is written in Sanskrit. Since yoga is also part of our culture, and also it started long back at that point of time when Sanskrit was practiced and Sanskrit was used a lot in that period of time, you will see a lot of those scripts. So the names of yoga also are based on different kind of Sanskrit terms and Sanskrit meanings and based on the nature. So you may get a little confused when you compare the names with English or when you compare the names with a lot of regular day words or regular day vocabulary, but I will be giving you the names and the meanings of each asanas in English also, but you also need to remember that you have to learn these names of asanas and different other elements of yoga in Sanskrit, because at the end of the day that is the real name of it, and in the exam also you have to write it in Sanskrit. Okay, so having said that, we will jump on with each one of this topic and try to understand. So let's start off with our first topic, that is the meaning of yoga. What do you mean by yoga? From where it came from? What is the derivation? What is the nomenclature of yoga? So what is yoga? Yoga is derived from a Sanskrit word. Like I said about the relevance of Sanskrit word, you have to keep this in mind. A lot of things in this chapter or a lot of things in this session will be based on Sanskrit words. Okay. So yoga is derived from Sanskrit word yuj in verb form, which means to unite. Now when you talk about verb form, a little bit of English grammar over here. Verb is what? Verb is the action, right? Verb speaks about the action. Okay, so in the action form of the word yuj means unite, to unite something, okay, or to join. To unite or join something in Sanskrit is called as yuj, and in English we call it as to unite or join. Okay, so that is from where the word yoga was derived. It was the combination of different elements. Okay, now when you talk about union, what kind of union am I talking about? I am talking about the unity of 3 elements. Okay, we are talking about your body, mind and spirit. So yoga is what? Yoga is basically what? Yoga is the unity of your body, mind and soul, or body, mind and spirit. So that's why yoga is called as yoga, and in Sanskrit the derivation of the word yoga came from the word yuj. You have to keep this in mind. The nomenclature and the derivation of the word yoga is formed from the language Sanskrit, of which the word yuj was used, where yuj means to unite or to combine. Here we are talking about combination or combining of 3 elements. What all are those 3 elements? Those 3 elements are again your body, mind and spirit, or body, mind and soul. Now having said that, having given the nomenclature and the meaning of the word yoga, let's dive into the session, or let's dive into the concept more and try to understand in depth more about the concept. Okay, next we have is importance of yoga, why you need to practice yoga, what is the relevance of yoga in a person's life. Okay, the first one is physical purity. Yoga gives you physical purity. Now when you talk about physical purity, we are talking about physical fitness. We are talking about physical components that are involved. We studied about anatomy, we studied about physiology in our life. Anatomy is the structural part, physiology is the functional part. When you practice yoga, both your anatomical and physiological factors of your body gets involved and it becomes more pure. So physical purity involves that. Then the next importance of yoga is it cures and prevents you from any kind of diseases. So it has the ability to cure any existing diseases, and it also has the ability to prevent you from getting any diseases. Okay, so that's the second importance of yoga. Now how does it do that? We'll study further in coming sessions of the chapter, but for now you have to know that one of the importance of yoga is that it cures a lot of diseases and it also prevents you from getting a lot of diseases. Next, it reduces mental tension. So any kind of stress factor, any kind of mental problems that you're facing, any kind of mental health issues that you're facing, all will be compensated, all will be treated by practicing yoga. And which element of yoga, what kind of asana, all those things, like I said, we'll study further in the chapter. Next, it provides you a healthy body. When you talk about healthy body, according to World Health Organization, healthy body is not just to stay physically fit, it is to stay mentally, physically, socially and psychologically fit. So healthy body means here we are talking about all those components. So yoga makes you fit in different departments of healthy body. Okay, so what all elements comes under health? We are talking about physical health, we are talking about mental health, we are talking about psychological health, we are talking about physiological health, we are talking about anatomical health, and a lot of other components will come here. Okay, now the next importance of yoga is it provides relaxation. Like I said, it gives you calmness. Okay, in this chaotic world, in this chaotic work environment, or in this chaotic space wherever you live in or wherever you spend the whole day, you might get a little boggled by the end of the day. So you might get a little fatigued or you may get tired by the end of the day. When you practice yoga, different types of yogasanas are there. When you practice yoga, it gives you relaxation. So that's one of the other importance of yoga. We'll get to all these points. You will find the relevance of all these points later in the session. As of now, you just have to keep in mind that each of these things are importance of yoga. Now how it is important, how each of these things will be important, now you will understand that as we go along in the session. Okay, next, it helps in maintaining the correct body posture. Okay, so automatically when you do a lot of asanas, when you do a lot of postural deformity related curing asanas, automatically if you have any kind of postural deformity, we studied about postural deformity in the anatomy chapter, in physiology chapter, where there are a lot of kind of vertebral deformities. All those things will be fixed when you practice yoga. So that's another importance of yoga. Next, yoga can be performed easily. Unlike many other physical fitness activity, when you practice yoga, yoga is easy compared to other physical fitness activity. Now, there are certain things, there are certain flexible exercises where the yoga or the yogasana demands you to be flexible enough to do that asana. It may get a little tough, but given the comparison, given the ratio or the comparison ratio of other physical fitness activity where strained exercise or muscle strength and a lot of other things are required, a lot of other components are involved in there, compared to that, in ratio with that, in comparison to that, yoga is easily practicable. And also, like I said, yoga has a lot of asanas and a lot of kriyas in that. There are certain asanas which some people cannot perform, and the benefit that you get from that particular asana can also be attained from an asana which is easy for you. So basically, if you want to attain something and there is a particular asana for that, if you're not able to practice that asana because it is requiring you to be more flexible, or it is requiring for your body to be more flexible or to do different kind of poses, but you're not able to do that, you always will have an alternative asana which you will be able to perform that, and you will get the same benefit which you couldn't get from the other asana. So that is another benefit of yogasana. Okay, so there is always alternative things that you can do and get the same results. So yoga makes, in that sense, in that angle, if you look into yoga, it is easy and it makes the exercise and physical fitness activity and goals more easier. Next, spiritual development. Automatically, what happens, like I said, when you practice yoga, all of the different elements are involved in there. Since the meaning of yoga that we studied, it's what? It's a combination of three elements. It's the combination of what all elements? It's a combination of physical fitness, your body fitness, right? We are talking about the physical fitness, you're talking about the mental fitness, and we are talking about the spiritual fitness of your spiritual energy. So when you talk about spiritual development, we are talking about three elements here. We studied about the derivation of the word yoga, we studied about the meaning of yoga, where the involvement of three elements were there. What all were three elements? The three elements were again physical, mental and spiritual. The fitness of that, the combination of that is called as yoga, right? So automatically when you practice different kind of yogic activities, all those different activities and components will be involved, including the third element in that combination, that is the spiritual part. Like I said, body, mind and spirit. So body and mind we are not talking about here, we are talking about the spiritual development. So spiritual development also will be there. That is one another importance of yoga. Next, it increases flexibility. Like I said, yogasanas are one of the best activities or best physical fitness activities that you can do to improve the flexibility in your body. Regular day activities in your life also requires you to be flexible, okay? And some people have a rigid muscle, they are not able to flex. Some people get that genetically also, so from childhood also they will be flexible. So like I said, those people who are getting it from genetics, they are lucky over there. People who are not getting it doesn't mean that they also cannot do different kind of yogasanas. To practice yogasana, you have to get that flexibility from the childhood. It's not that the case. It's just that people who have that kind of benefit has an extra add-on benefit, that's it. But people who don't have that from the genetics can still practice yogasanas, and by the time when you practice more and more yogasanas over the period of time, the flexibility of the body will automatically improve, okay? So all those things will be under flexibility part. So next importance is it reduces obesity. So the problem of overweight, the problem of obesity, this situation or this medical problem or this physical fitness problem is existing in large in abundance in the society. Overweight is never good because it increases a lot of other problems in your body, okay? So overweight increases a lot of other problems in your body, including it increases the glucose level in your blood, okay? So all those things will be taking over if you have more overweight, okay? If you have more weight, those things or those medical issues will be taking over the period of time. So to avoid that, it is important to practice yoga. That's one another importance of yoga. Next, it improves your health. Like I said earlier also, health is again a wider topic. When you talk about health, a lot of components are involved in that. All those components will be fixed, all those components will be resolved, all those components and the faults that you have in those sections or in those components will be fixed when you practice yogasanas. Next, you have enhances morals and ethical values. So it improves your ethical values, it improves your moral values. Like I said, yogasana gives you relaxation, yogasana gives you the calmness, yogasana makes you physically fit, yogasana makes you spiritually fit, yogasana makes you again mentally fit. So we are not just talking about asana now. People have this misconception going in their mind that yoga means just asanas, practicing different asanas. But you need to know that when you study about the 8 elements of yoga, you will realize one thing, that asanas are just one element of 8 elements of yoga. 8 elements of yoga is also called as Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means 8 in Sanskrit and yoga means, like you studied already, what is the meaning of yoga. So 8 elements of yoga, out of that only one element is asana. So now I want to clear this doubt out of your mind. Please understand, please know that, just clear this doubt in your mind. It is that yoga is not asana, okay? Asana is not yoga. Both are different things. Yoga is a wider topic, asana is just a part of that, okay? People generally misconfuse that, misunderstand that, misinterpret that. I wanted to avoid that confusion clear right now, so I hope you understood that part, okay? Having said that, let's move on to our next topic, that is the elements of yoga. Like I said, we will be studying about elements of yoga. Here it is. So what are the elements of yoga? Elements of yoga are the part of yoga which makes yoga as one thing, okay? We studied about, like, you may get confused, sir, you told about 3 elements are involved, that is called as yoga. Yes, when you talk about yoga, it's a combination or it's a unison of what all things? It's a unison of body, mind and spirit. It's a combination of all those 3 things. But in that body section also, in the spiritual part also, to attain different things in that spiritual part, different things in that body fitness, different things in that mental fitness, there are further elements involved in that. So all those elements together are put together as 8 elements of yoga. 8 elements of yoga. 8 elements of yoga is again in Sanskrit also called as Ashtanga yoga, spelled as ASHTANGAYOGA, okay? So that is Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means ASHT, Ashta means 8. Anga means what? ANG means parts. Yoga you already studied, it's a combination of body, mind and spirit. So Ashtanga yoga is 8 parts, 8 ang, right? So 8 ang we called as Ashtanga yoga. So 8 elements of yoga is called as Ashtanga yoga. So in the exam you may get the question in form of Ashtanga Yoga, or you may get also it as 8 elements of yoga. So either way, whichever you get, you can use that and you can write that in your exam. Okay, so the answer for both is the same. But in the exam, when they ask the question as Ashtanga Yoga, you have to write that answer and address that also as Ashtanga Yoga. Please bear that in mind, it's very important. Okay. Next, we have 8 elements of yoga. What all are these 8 elements of yoga? We have Yama, then we have Niyama, then we have Asana, then we have Pranayama, then we have Pratyahara, then you have Dharana, then you have Dhyana, and finally you have Samadhi. As you can see, the third element in this, Asana, I told you, right? Asana is just one element of yoga. And all those asanas that you see at online platform and offline platforms and offline and online sources, all of them are just one element of yoga. Different yogasana, you know, right? You have Sukhasana, Tadasana, Bhujangasana, all those different asanas are there. There are other things also in yoga. Okay, so we'll look into each one of them, meaning of that, the concept of that, what exactly does it mean, what exact kind of meaning does it hold, and what is the relevance of that in yoga, and why we are talking that. You can connect all of these topics that we are studying with the meaning of yoga that I gave, and you will realize that each of the concepts and each of the thing that we study about each of these elements of yoga, each of these 8 elements of yoga has to do with the meaning of yoga itself. Now all of these things will also have subcomponents in that. Yama also has subcomponents, Niyama also have subcomponents, and finally you have Pranayama. So some of the elements will have subcomponents, some of the elements will be a component on its own. Okay, so subcomponents we will see further in the session. As of now, let's see what all things are, what does each of these mean. Yama is what? Yama is different kind of activities that you do in your life, different kind of deeds that you do, the different kind of life practices that you do. In general, that is called as Yama. Second is Niyama. Niyama is different rules, different disciplines that you should follow in a life. In a life, what all disciplines a person should follow in a life, that is called as Niyama. You might have heard this word in Hindi, right? Niyam. Niyam is what? Niyam is rules, right? So Niyama is what? Niyama is again the various disciplines and various rules that you have to practice in a life in order to make your life better. Next is Asana. Asana is basically what? Asana is a posture. Posture is called as asana. I did not give you the meaning of that. Now I am giving you what is the meaning of asana. Asana is a comfortable posture. A comfortable posture in which you can sit in, that is called as asana. When we study about the asana in deep, different kind of asanas, different kind of yoga asanas, that time we will again revisit the meaning of asana and try to understand more about the definition and who all gave different kind of meanings for asana. Okay, but now just understand that asana means different kind of postures that you do, different kind of yogasanas that you do. That asana there is different kind of postures. Next you have pranayama. Pranayama is what? Pranayama is the breathing procedure, the discipline of breathing, the control of breathing. Now you may not have control over your breathing. Now you may say that breathing need not to be controlled. It's an involuntary activity, right? It's an involuntary activity. One of the involuntary activity when you talk about physiology in the body. Yes, it is one of the involuntary activity, but to control the breathing when you're doing intensive activity, that will again help you to control the breathing whenever you want. That time it will help you, because breathing, the respiratory function, the cardiorespiratory system in our body has to do a lot with a lot of things that happens to our body in a negative way and also in a positive way. So you being able to control your breathing will help you out with a lot of things. So that's the pranayama. Pranayama is a procedure of breathing. So if you have any kind of breathing disability, if you practice the kriya of pranayama, that will again help you with a lot of kind of such issues. Okay. Next you have pratyahara. So what is pratyahara? So basically pratyahara is a process where you control your different kind of senses, your different kind of intimidations, different kind of feelings that you have that you are out of your control. So whether it's a positive feeling, whether it's a negative feeling, whether it's a toxic feeling, whether it's a good feeling, whether it's a feeling of happiness, whether it's a feeling of overwhelming, okay, whether it's a feeling of sadness or anything, any kind of feeling, the control over such feelings, the control over such emotions is called as pratyahara. After that you have dharana. Dharana is a stage, dharana is a kriya in yoga where you think about something, you dream about something, you picture your plan, you picture your life plan, or you picture your plans or goals while doing meditation. Okay, so that's called as dharana. Dharana itself means to think about something, to imagine something, to anticipate something, to think something ahead of the time, think something and to plan something ahead of the time. That's called as dharana itself. Next you have dhyana. Now dhyana might be a very common term that you might have again heard. Just like niyama, you might have heard the word niyam, which means rules. Same like that dhyana. Dhyan means what? Dhyan se karo. In Hindi we call it as, right? Dhyan se kaam karo, dhyan se ye karo, dhyan se wo karo. So all those things will mean what? Dhyan means to concentrate, to focus on something, to pay attention, to give a span of attention to a time. So basically your span of attention, how long can you focus on something, how long can you concentrate on something, all of these things will be improved and can be nourished or again polished by practicing dhyana kriya in yoga. And finally you have samadhi. Samadhi is the final stage of the body, okay? In English we call it as corpse, okay? So the dead body of a human being, where the body, the concept of yoga is again, we are not dying in that stage. When a person dies, when a person becomes expired, his dead body also is not dying. It is just getting converted to different elements. It is getting mixed into the soil, and again it will convert in form of fossils and different things over the period of time. It will again give different kind of benefits to the plants and trees, and again it's a cycle, it's a food cycle process, it's a cycle of life, okay? And for a human being, in a general notion, in a general angle of thinking, that person might be dead, but in the concept of yoga, a person doesn't die. Samadhi is a situation, it's a situation of a dead body, but still we don't consider that person as a dead person, we consider it as a person whose one cycle is over, his current cycle is over, now he is going to start another cycle in form of fossil or different forms, okay? So samadhi is the final stage of a person. We are talking about the final stage of corpse or a dead body, okay? So these are different stages, different elements of yoga. Now yoga is a practice of life. Yoga is living life. Yoga is life, okay? So yama is again the practices that you do in life, the deeds that you do in life. Niyama is the discipline and the rules which are suggested for you to follow. Now this is not a hard and fast rule. All of these things are the suggestions. All of these things, you can take 8 elements of yoga as the guidebook for your life. So if you practice, if you are a yogi, if you practice yoga, then if you do proper deeds, that is the yama section. If you follow proper disciplinary rules, that is niyama. If you follow proper asanas and postures, that is asana. If you follow proper breathing procedure, that is pranayama. If you can control over your senses, that is pratyahara. Then you have dharana, where you imagine and anticipate things. And finally you have dhyana, where you concentrate, and later you have samadhi at the last stage, that is corpse. So you can see there are different stages of life that is involved, different kind of elements of life also is involved in this. So you have total 8 elements of yoga. Now let's dive into each one of them and see what are the sub-components of each one of them, and those elements which doesn't have a sub-component, it is a component single on its own, then we will see the meaning of that once more, okay? So first we have yama. So what exactly is yama? We already discussed about that. Let's see some of its components, okay? First is to practice ahimsa or non-violence, okay? You might remember your history class, the concept of ahimsa, you might have heard about that, the non-violence, okay? Ahimsa is what? Non-violence, to not hurt anybody physically or mentally, that is called as ahimsa. Mohandas Karamchandra Gandhi, the father of our nation, Gandhiji was known for non-violence principles, okay? So this is not a new concept to you, it's just been segregated, and you will know that that is one of the suggested deeds that you should carry on in your life. That is one of the suggested principle or a sub-element of yama that you should carry along in your life to lead a better life. Next, you have satya or truthfulness. Always speak the right thing, always speak the truth, never lie to somebody, because what happens is that when you have to lie to somebody, you will have to lie 1,000 more times to hide that lie, okay? So you are putting a cloak over some matter or anything by telling a lie, then you have to put another 1,000 cloaks to hide that thing even more. So one lie is leading you to 1,000 more. So the practice of lie will lead to different kind of problems. So you should never lie. That is the second principle that you should follow under yama. Third is asteya, never to steal something from somebody. The things that you don't possess, the things that you don't own, you're not supposed to keep it. So if somebody gives you something, that's a different case, but without the permission of somebody, without the permission of some person, you're not supposed to steal or take that person's objects or take that person's belongings. That's called as stealing. So the practice of stealing has to be avoided. That's called as asteya. That's the meaning of asteya, okay? That is one of the third principle of yama, which is under the 8 elements of yoga. Next you have brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is a concept of giving your life to practice spiritual. It's a principle of yama where you don't get married, where you don't get into relationships. You give your life to spiritual wellness or for spiritual enlightenment, where you dedicate your life to meditation. You dedicate your life just like Gautam Buddha, right? He got enlightenment by practicing brahmacharya. So brahmacharya is a situation where you focus only on meditation and you think about the life, you sort out different things, you do meditation, you do different kind of tapasya, and then you get the enlightenment. That form of life is called called as brahmacharya. So that's one another principle that is under yama. And next you have aparigraha, which means you're not supposed to own anything more than what is required. Basically living on minimum requirements. Whatever you need, whatever you require, whatever you need to live a life regularly, the basic requirements of life, only that much you should own. You should not own more than what is not required. And in case if you own something that you don't need, or if you own something more than what you actually need to live a life, then you are supposed to donate that to those people or poor people who are not able to afford such things. So that way you will be giving back and you will be balancing out the whole basic requirements to your life. Okay, so that is the concept of aparigraha, where you don't own something which is not required. Okay, so these are some of the principles that you should implement in your life so that you could live a better life. Now, having said that, let's move on to our second element of yoga, that is again niyama. Niyama is what? Once again, niyama is different rules that we follow. Niyam is what? It's rules. So different rules here doesn't mean it's a rule. It's more like a disciplinary principle that you should follow in your life to lead a better life. First one is socha, that is the purity. You should have the concept, you should have the habit of hygienic principles in your life. Okay, you should follow different hygienic principle in your life. You should not have impure practices. So keeping your environment hygienic, keeping yourself hygienic physically, mentally and in different other components is called as the Swachha. Okay, now remember, don't confuse this word with Swachh. Okay, that is S-W-A-T-C-H. We spell it as like that. In Hindi we call it as Swachh, right? You might have got used to that word. Swachh itself means cleanness and purity. The meaning is same, but we are talking about Sanskrit, not Hindi. Remember, difference between Hindi and Sanskrit, there is a minor difference in the language, though a lot of words in Hindi also is inspired from Sanskrit, but you should know there are still language or vocabulary difference in both the languages. So Socha in Sanskrit, purity, cleanness, hygienic principles, all those things in Sanskrit is spelled as Saucha, that is S-A-U-C-H-A, not S-W-A-T-C-H. Keep that in mind. Okay, so Socha is one thing, that is the first element of Niyama. We are talking about subcomponents and sub-element. Keep that in mind. Niyama, the first element is Socha. Next you have Santosh. Santosh is what? Santosh is one another word that is very common to you. Santosh means what? Santosh means happiness. To be happy, to be satisfied with whatever things you have. That is called as Santosh. So the discipline of feeling gratitude, the discipline of thankfulness. You should be happy for whatever you have in life instead of being sad for whatever you don't have in life. That's called as gratitude, and in Sanskrit under Niyama that's called as Santosha. Okay, so that's the second sub element of Niyama. Next you have Tapa. Tapa is different kind of difficulties that you may follow, different kind of disabilities that you may face in life, different kind of disability that you may step across when you lead a life. All those things should not be able to stop you. You should pass through all that, you should defeat all that, you should face all those difficulties and move ahead in the life. Now, like I said, life is a mixture of good moments and bad moments. It's a mixture of up downs. When we talk about emotions, when you talk about the way you live your life, what you were 10 years back, you might not be living that life 10 years later. It could be good or it could be bad. So it changes. Nothing is constant in life. That's the whole point. So you should deal with everything, every difficulty that you have in life and live a better life. You should be able to beat or strive through any kind of problems that you're facing and move ahead. That is called as Tapa. That is the principle of Tapa. Later you have Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is a principle where you will be studying about different granthas in your life. Now, what is granthas? Now, you might have studied about Upanishads, you might have studied about different Rig Vedas, Vedas, granthas. Now, we are talking about country's history. We are talking about the history of our ancestors. When somebody asks you about your culture, when somebody asks you about your tradition and your ancestral background and the histories and the stories about it, you should know that. You should know your roots. That's the whole point of Swadhyaya. And finally, you have Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana is dedicating yourself to God, or dedicating yourself in a more yogic term, dedicating yourself to the higher power or to the cosmic energy that is around us, or to the higher energy that is keeping the world in balance. That is called as Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, having given the various components of Yama and having given the various components of Niyama, let's move on to our next topic, that is the meaning of asana. What do you mean by asana? We studied this. I gave a brief glimpse of the whole idea about the meaning of asana, but let's see the formal statement of that and how it was given by different scholars in Sanskrit. Now, according to Patanjali, now before we read further, I want you to know that who is Patanjali. Now, in layman's term, people may generally know Patanjali by the product Patanjali, right? But try to understand from where that word came from for that product also. Patanjali is the father of yoga. Now, this is not there in your syllabus, the statement that Patanjali is the father of yoga, but given the relevance of the topic, given the concept yoga, it is important for you, it is relevant for you to know who is the father of yoga. Father of yoga is Patanjali, okay? So now let's see further what he said. According to Patanjali, asana means what? Sthiram Sukham Asanam. What is it? Sthiram Sukham Asanam. A pose in which you can sit comfortably, that is called as asana. In Sanskrit, we put that statement as Sthitam Sukham Asanam. A posture in which you can sit comfortably is called as asana. So a posture in which you can sit comfortably without feeling any kind of fatigue or any kind of problem, that's called as asana or asanam in Sanskrit. Now there is one more definition. One definition was given by the father of yoga, Patanjali itself, that states Sthitam Sukham Asanam. There is one more statement that is given in Brahmanopanishad, that is to sit in comfortable position or posture for everlasting period is called as asana. So we have two definitions over here. One is Sthitam Sukham Asanam, which is again to sit in a comfortable posture. Simple as that. Then we have one more definition given in the book or in literary work of yoga, that is Brahmanopanishad, that is to sit in comfortable position or posture for an entire period of time or for a longer period of time. That's called as asana. So what is asana? In simpler term, if you avoid all the complicated statements and if you avoid all the formal statement, if you just want to remember asana in a single line or in a few basic concept, if you want to remember the concept of asana, asana is what? Asana is just a posture. In single word, if you want to know, it is a posture. Asana is what? It is a posture, it's a comfortable posture. A posture which you sit, in which you can sit for a longer period of time. Now, there might be postures and positions in which you sit and you feel uncomfortable for a longer period of time, and then you switch the position and then you go and sit on a chair. Some people have trouble sitting on the floor, right? They sit for a while and then they feel tired, their leg feel numb, they get up and then they go and sit on the chair. So if you have any kind of such problems, then that is not a comfortable posture, that is not a comfortable asanam, okay? Or it's not a comfortable asana, it's not a comfortable posture. So that won't be qualifying you for calling it an asana for you. So whichever pose makes you feel comfortable, that's called as asana. That's a statement, that's the meaning of asana. Now when you talk about yoga asanas, there are different kind of postures. Now some of the postures you may not be able to sit in that because of the flexibility issues and because your body is not used to that. But if you practice, you can sit in that. But why still it is called comfortable? Now when it comes to the practicing of yoga, you may say that I'm not able to perform Bhujangasana, sir. I'm not able to perform Mayurasana, sir. It's not comfortable. But the statement of yoga, the meaning of asana itself states that asana means comfortable posture. Now comfortable in the sense, when the yoga was found, when the yoga was initiated, all of those poses are comfortable postures if your body is fit. If your body is not able to do a particular asana, it's because your body has that lack of flexibility. It doesn't make the asana itself comfortable. It may be uncomfortable for you, but in general statement when you talk about, it is beneficial. All those asanas will have physiological benefit also. It will cure a lot of problems. So there is no gain without pain, like in the English statement we call it as, right? So exactly like that, there are certain asanas which will give you pain in the initial time, but the gain will be later if you practice thoroughly and if you practice continuously. Now having given a idea about asana and the meaning of that, let's move on to our next topic, that is again the classification of asanas. Now you know what is asana, right? Now you know what is asana, the meaning of asana, the posture. What is it? In general term, it's a posture. Now the asanas, different yogasanas in yoga chapter also, in yoga, the concept of yoga also is divided into different categories. Okay, what all are those categories? You have meditative asana, then you have relaxative asana, and finally you have cultural or corrective asana. Now we will get into each one of them and try to understand what it is. Meditative asana, need not boggle your mind much. Meditative asanas are those asanas or those postures in which you can sit and do meditation. That's called as meditative asana. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Next you have relaxative asana. So what is relaxative asana? Relaxative asanas are those asanas which gives you relaxation. Next you have cultural or corrective asana. Now I will not give you what is cultural asana. First I will give you what is corrective asana. Then I will tell you why is cultural asana. Okay. Now when you read the word cultural or corrective asana together, you may have this confusion in your mind that why it is given together. There is no relation between these two words, right? There is no close relation when it comes to the meaning or the practical part, literary meaning of those words. Now I'll get into that. Before that, try to understand what is corrective asana. Okay, why is it called as corrective asana? It is called as corrective asana. It is called as corrective asana because it improves or it corrects a lot of problems in your body. That's why it's called as corrective asana. And why it is called as cultural asana? It is called as cultural asana because this section of yogasanas, this part of all the yogasanas that you study, is the oldest form of yogasanas that you have in the practice of yoga. So corrective asanas are the oldest set of yogasanas. That's why it also is a part of the culture. So that's why it is called as a cultural asana also. So you have cultural asana, or you can also call it as corrective asana because it fixes a lot of problems in you, or it corrects a lot of problems in you. Okay, so going back to the meditative asana, like I said, what it is, meditative asanas are those postures or those asanas in which you can sit and you can practice meditation. Next you have relaxative asana. Relaxative asana is that asana in which you can sit and relax. Next you have cultural or corrective asana. Cultural, why? Because it is the oldest set of yogasanas. Corrective, why? Because it corrects a lot of problems that you may have anatomically or physiologically. Okay, so I hope you understood the whole session very well. With this, I'll wind up this topic. Now in the next session, we will see different kind of yogasanas, different kind of classifications that we studied now in detail. We studied about meditative asanas, we studied about relaxative asanas, we studied about cultural or corrective asanas. In the next session, we will be looking further deep into that and see what all asanas are those which we are talking about. Okay, now having given a brief idea or a brief glimpse of the whole next session, this is me, Rohit, signing out until next time. Goodbye.